All right. So we're live. We're here today to talk about vitamin D. Vitamin D, we'll do that because so many medical doctors, natural doctors, people you see on the internet, everybody's talking about it and recommending it right now, especially related to what's going on in the world right now, the virus and what we need to improve our health in terms of that. So I have Ethan Leeds here. He's a holistic nutrition and detox specialist. He's been in this field for 30 years, working with natural health, and knows a lot about vitamin D. And I'm happy to have this conversation today because he's full of information and some points that maybe we don't think about when we hear vitamin D, and hoping that we'll get some people thinking a little bit differently maybe during this conversation. So thank you for being here, Ethan. Thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's exciting. So I mean, I guess we'll just start with you know, what is the basics? What are the basics on vitamin D that people know, might think they know, or might not know?
Okay, well, first of all, D is important, and we should be getting it primarily from sunshine. Our body makes it from cholesterol. So having low cholesterol is a challenge, by the way, if you're wanting enough D. Um, but as you just pointed out, we're being told wholesale that everyone's pretty much deficient. Like massive numbers of people are deficient all of a sudden with D, and that we should be supplementing it with a synthetic version of it, which is being pushed by big pharma primarily. It's coming from big pharma, who it's literally $1 billion industry, that single supplement, being pushed by big pharma and through medical doctors, and that has spilt over into the natural doctors as well. And I think we should be asking some questions when something is being pushed so heavily by big pharma. It should be a little red flag. When we add to that the fact that it's in so few foods, that is another little, if this is so important, why is it not in pretty much any foods? The D3, that is what they're telling us we should have. You've got it in some oily fish. There's D2 in some plants, but not D3. It's really hard to get if you're looking at supplementing from food, which is where we should be getting our nutrients. It's really hard to get it in much quantity at all from food. So that should be a little, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Um, so has it really been proven to do the things that they claim? Is there really good solid science behind it? And actually, there isn't. Um, so this is a little bit of a rabbit hole. Now, it's challenging because people, when they get to the point of believing something, it can be challenging to change your mind. And,
Yes.
and so a lot of people have been taught this for so long and believe this for so long that when you start to suggest that maybe all is not quite what they thought it was, and maybe supplementing with D, a synthetic D3, might not be giving the benefits that they think that it should be giving them, then that can be a bit of a mental challenge. So I want to take it kind of step by step and look at the
Right.
facts, and hopefully the listeners will be sufficiently will understand that they need to allow facts, even facts that conflict with their current belief system. They need to allow facts to speak for themselves. And so the very first fact that I like to bring to the table that a lot of people still don't know is that vitamin D isn't a vitamin. Um, because part of the deception that they use all the time on us is by changing words, um, because words are very powerful. And
Yes.
since we all know that our body needs vitamins and we're all used to supplementing with vitamins, if we're told we're short of a vitamin, it's a very small step to say, well, if I'm short of this vitamin, I can supplement with it, especially when you can't find it in any food. Let's get it through a lot of natural people. Okay, what foods can I eat then? It's like, hardly any. I need the supplement then. And the basis for that deception is that by calling something a vitamin that isn't a vitamin. So if it's not a vitamin, then what is it? And what it is it's a hormone. It's a serosteroidal hormone, to be precise. So if you said to somebody, hey, I think it's a really good idea if you start supplementing with this steroidal hormone, you would probably have a lot more resistance than if I said, hey, you're deficient in this vitamin and it's hard to get from food because it's in hardly anything, so here's a supplement for it. So that's the beginning of the deception, and it is a deception. And hopefully we'll expand on that a little as we go. So that's the first thing. We've got to get into people's heads. And even Google, if you Google it, and I'm not a fan of Google, and most people in natural health aren't, but even Google, you can find out that D is a serosteroidal hormone. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, so you've got to understand, if you're taking the supplement, you are supplementing with a powerful hormone. And there are serious consequences of doing this. Now, some people are already going to be saying in their head, I have taken this, whatever you want to call it, it's a hormone. It's not whatever I want to call it, it's a hormone.
It is what it is.
So I have taken this hormone and I felt better.
Yeah.
And that's all I need to know. And so they're already switching off to hearing anything else because they felt better.
Yeah.
And I want to point out the fallacy of this kind of thinking. Because first of all, I want to acknowledge that that is the case for some people. So some people do take hormone D and they do feel better.
Well, that was me years ago as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Not just D, but yeah, a few different supplements that I would think I felt better.
Right.
When taking them, and if I feel better
is normally a fairly good indication that, okay, that's pretty good then, right?
Right.
However, it's possible to feel better and it not be good. And let me kind of point out some examples that people hopefully will realize and be familiar with. But the conventional medicine approach is to not deal with cause, but instead suppress symptoms. And so a lot of what they do is about suppression of symptoms. So for example, if you go to a doctor and you've got an autoimmune, which they say is the immune system is attacking you, which it's not. It's attacking the toxins in you, if you want to
Yep.
put it that way. And if your cells are full of toxins, it can be pretty much indistinguishable from attacking your cells.
It's actually protecting you from the
It's
toxins.
protecting you. It's protecting you, but it's because you're full of these toxins, and that's the problem. That's the cause. Yep. So a holistic approach would be to say, hey, you've got an autoimmune because you're toxic, so we've got to get rid of the toxins, and then your immune system will stop, doing what it's doing. Now the medical world will say, hey, you've got an autoimmune, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to crush your immune so it can't do anything. Okay. Will that make you feel better? Yes, that will make you feel better. Did it help you? No, it didn't help you. Other than it helped your feelings, yes, it did that. But it's actually setting you up for much worse problems down the road. So we can look at another example of the immune system. So we know that fever is a response of the immune to certain assaults on the body. And by raising your body's temperature, your body uses that to fight certain things that are going on in your body. And so a holistic person an approach is going to be to let the fever run its course. There are odd exceptions. There are situations where it can become dangerously high. And so there are situations where you might want to get fever down. But as a general rule, for normal stuff, you're going to let the fever run its course. However, the conventional approach is crush the fever, get the fever down, which is to say, let's fight what your immune is doing to defend itself.
Right.
So this is two very different approaches. But we have to acknowledge that the conventional approach makes people feel better. Does it feel better to lower your fever? Yes, it does. Right? Was that a good idea? No, it wasn't. So feeling better is not a good barometer to tell you that something is better. You have to look at the individual situation and work out whether or not that was actually a good thing. Some things make you feel better that are not good. Ice cream is a good example. We call comfort foods because they make you feel better, but they're harming you, right?
Exactly.
And we could look at drugs. Alcohol makes people, when they drink, some people get into alcohol because it makes them feel better.
That was my first thought when you said the vitamin D makes people feel better.
Right.
Like opiates could make you feel better.
Right.
Are they good for you? No.
So if the D is making you feel better, we have to say, okay, well, that's on the face of it, that's good, but why? Is it making you feel better because it's dealing with the root cause, or is it acting just like a steroid? The doctor prescribes you to dumb something down, which it is, of course. So we have to figure that. So it's not as simple as just saying, okay, because I felt better or my friend felt better, it must be good. We need to dig a little bit deeper. So let's do that little bit of digging deeper. So the first question that we have to ask ourselves is, why are we taking D? And we're taking D, if we are, because the doctor or a test has told us that we're deficient in D. Okay? So even if we're asymptomatic, and the test shows us we're deficient, there's people who have got no symptoms, no problems, but their test has shown them that they're positive, whatever, something, and they should take the medication. Okay, I mean, I'm relating that hopefully in people's
right
something else
to what's going on in the world right now. I mean, we know people are getting tested all over the place for the virus, and I make sure I do that, but it's there's a lot of tests that's just a good example of the fact that testing isn't very reliable, right?
Right. It's not, and I'm going to explain why the D test is particularly not, but hopefully people will know that the PCR test is a very valid test, perfectly good, but it's misused to get results that they want to get. Okay, so let's look at the D test. So most people assume that when they go and get tested for D, that their D has just been tested. No, it hasn't. Right? So we need to, I'm going to keep this very simple because a lot of people aren't really into science and what have you. And we don't need to get too complicated, but we've got to understand that there's two basic types of D in your body. There's loads, but they're split into two camps. So one of the camps is inactive D, and the other camp is active D. So the active D is the D that actually is doing stuff in your body, and the inactive D is just stored D ready to be used in the event that the body needs it. Okay, so inactive and active. Now, if we were only going to test one of those, I think most people would see that the common sense one to test would be the active one that was doing stuff in your body. But that's not what they test. They ignore that. So the D that's doing anything in your body is utterly ignored, and they focus only on the inactive D. But it's worse than that. because there are at least 14 types, substrates of inactive D in your body, and they ignore 12 of them. Okay, and they only measure 2 of the inactive substrates. Okay, so that should already be setting off alarm bells in people's minds. Hang on a minute, why would they do that? Okay, so now what they then do, if they find that the 2 inactive substrates that they're measuring are low, then they say you're low in D, like that's your D, which it isn't. It's worse than that, because not that many years ago, the measurement for D was for those 2 substrates, which is called 25D. So if you've got a test, it will say 25, might say OHD or 25D. If someone's had that test, that's those 2 substrates. So it used to be that if you had a level of 28, you were considered fine. The level was 30. Let's do it. So the level was 30. It used to be 30, and then they dropped it to, I think it's 12 and a half now. So they changed the scale radically. It might be in 2010, I forget the date. Not that long ago, they changed the scale. So straight away, a whole mass of people that would have been before that date fine, not low, suddenly are low. So that's one of the things that they did. Okay, so we're looking at 2 substrates. We're ignoring our active D. And then what they do, when they see it's on this new scale, low, okay, they say that you need to take D. Now, does taking that D increase your active D? They don't do that. They don't do that. They're just going to give you this inactive D, which is synthetic. It's nearly all made from a radiation, right? On sheep's wool, the lanolin, the grease on sheep's wool, that's what it's made from. And it doesn't behave the same as the D that your body makes from the sunshine. It's not the same. So people think they're taking, this is the oral version and that's the, no, they're different things. The body treats them differently. They do different things.
That's important. I think that's really important to know.
It is. It's yeah. So people mustn't think that they're getting this, and they're getting the inactive version, right?
Right.
So they take this inactive D, and they're told that because they're low. So what they often do is they'll get somebody with COVID or with fibromyalgia or with whatever. They'll test them, they'll find they're low, and they'll say, so they do what in science is called correlation, right? So there's a correlation between being sick and having this low D. So it would appear that having low D is making these people sick. Okay, that's a correlation, and it's a false correlation. It's not true. It could be proven to be not true, but they won't do the studies. But it's not true. It's the other way around. Because you're sick, yes, you have low inactive D. Because when you're sick, your body needs more D. So if they were to test the active D, they would find that the sick people have high active D. But they don't test that. They're only testing the inactive. So when you're low in inactive D, it's usually because you're high in D. Not low in D, you're high in the active D. Why? Because your body's fighting inflammation and whatever else that's going on. So your body needs D, so it makes more D. So you're high in D, and they're not going to measure it. Yeah. So when people measure both, which can be done, you can measure, and the active D is called 125D. So when they measure both, the people who would normally be told you're low in D because their 25D is low, usually are just people who are high in D. So if you're high in D, why are you taking more D? Now there's another factor that people say, oh, but I don't get much sun because I live in the northern hemisphere or whatever. Well, first of all, it's worth noting that people have lived in the northern hemisphere for a long time without any problems, right? And in fact, there is a symptom of low D. It's a very well-known symptom. Most people might not think of it, but it's well known. There's a disease that's called rickets, right? That you probably don't know anybody that's got, even though the test will tell you just about everyone's low in D. None of them seem to have the disease of being low in D, which should also be a little clue. Okay, back in the day, we used to have rickets when they used to, like, children used to have it when they used to work them in factories from, I don't know how long, huge amounts of hours, they never saw daylight. These kids used to get rickets. But we don't really see that in the US or the UK or the modern world anymore, because we're not low in D. So here's the thing, the 125D, which is your active D, is not affected by the season. So it doesn't go down in the winter, which is one of the reasons they don't measure it. It's not going to go down, right? The 25D does go down in the winter, but the active D doesn't. So if you live in the UK, as I did, and you don't get much sun in the UK, and you get your 125D tested, you're going to be fine, right? So you're not low in D. That's the stuff that's doing stuff in your body. Doesn't matter what your 25D is.
Right.
You're not going to be low in 125D, very rarely, unless there's a certain health conditions where you might be, but very occasionally, not many. There's a few things where you could potentially be low in 125D, but most of us, the vast majority, parathyroid issues can be problematic, and if you've got serious kidney issues, that can be another problem. But other than that, you're going to have enough 125D almost certainly. But you can find out. So anybody that thinks, okay, I'm not sure, I'm on the fence, get your 125D tested. You're going to probably struggle to get it from a doctor. They can do it, but they're told not to for the most part. So you're probably going to struggle unless you've got a doctor that's, a good doctor. So you probably have to go to a lab. I think Quest labs are ones that do it. And then some of the labs do a bad job of testing for 125D on purpose, to make it come out lower than it should be. So you've got to make sure that the lab is doing the test right as well. But anyway, so bottom line is, it's not a good idea in general to supplement with hormones, full stop.
I'm on the, it's not a good idea to supplement with synthetics.
I'm there as well, pretty much. Now, I have got the odd exception, but if you're supplementing with a synthetic for whatever reason, there's a particular vitamin that I do recommend for diabetics, which is synthetic, because it's impossible to get it from food. But you have to see the synthetic as more as a drug than an actual vitamin or vitamin,
yes,
or nutrient. It's like there are situations where maybe taking IVC, which is also synthetic, can have. There are situations where odd situations, but in general, putting synthetics in your body is not a great idea. And what you want is your nutrients, be it vitamins or minerals or amino acids, whatever, fatty acids, you want them from food, or because it's become challenging to get them from food because of the soil and the way the modern farming and the chemicals and all the rest of it, then we do need supplements, but we need to be looking at food-based supplements rather than synthetics. Or for minerals, lots of people are using rocks for minerals, crushed rocks, and the only place where, okay, so there's a little bit of an argument for salt, so a certain amount of salt in your diet, but you do not want to be getting your minerals from salt. You know, there's these companies that have super concentrated salt, so you're having a mass of salt. So can you get anything good from salt? Yeah, you can, but a lot, that's inorganic minerals, and inorganic minerals are not absorbed well by the body. So what happens is you end up with a lot of basically rock in your body, which your body has to get out. And if it doesn't get it out, it has to dump it, and it will start dumping it, and you'll end up getting stones, or your joints will seize up, or you will get cataracts, and so on. And by the way, that's one of the things that D does. So let's talk about that. So when you're taking this synthetic D, what it's going to do, your body has to match the D in your blood with calcium. Okay, it has to do that.
There's always a balance somewhere.
There's always a balance. So these things don't work in isolation, which is why I don't agree in general with taking, and again, there's exceptions, but in general, I don't agree with taking isolated vitamins and minerals and what have you, because it throws balance off.
Yes.
Unless you know you've got an imbalance where you've got a specific nutrient that's very low for a specific reason, then that situation you can take an isolate. But other than those situations, you really want to be taking complete nutrition in the food or supplement food state. So anyway, so the D then has to be matched by calcium. Now, if you've got sufficient calcium from your diet, then it will take it initially from that. So you won't be getting the calcium that you thought you were getting into the places you thought, because it's now being used to match up with the D and to be part of that process. So yes, you might be able to do that, but your calcium, which is a very important nutrient, is going to be dropping, and that's going to throw out magnesium. And when your magnesium gets, that's a problem for D as well, because D needs magnesium. It's a whole mess. Anyway, so you're going to match your calcium with your D. Now, if you're taking high amounts, and especially if you're taking them over a long period, you're going to run out of calcium, available calcium. So what's going to happen then? Well, here's what's going to happen. Your body is going to steal the calcium from your bones. That's what it's going to do. So people long term on D, they're going to start having things like osteoporosis, and they're going to start having calcium deposits in their arterial walls or wherever. So it's going to really muck up their calcium in their body, which is in fact, so cholecalciferol, which is the kind of D which we're talking about, is the active ingredient in rat poison. And
I feel like that's something some people listening might have heard before.
Right.
Because people ask about that.
Right. So, and it kills the rats through calcium deregulation. That's how it does it. Now, yes, someone will argue, oh, but it's in a higher level in the rat poison than we're getting in the supplement. Yes, it is. That's true. So probably the D is not going to kill you like it killed the rat. It's going to take a lot longer, and it's going to slowly disable you. So it's a different process. However, it can kill you. I was looking at one of the synthetic D manufacturers' pages a couple of months ago. Can't remember which one it was now, but anyway, I was reading, and so this is a pharmaceutical D producer. Okay, they make D, and I was looking on their page, and they said on their own page that certain people shouldn't take it. Can't remember the list now, but I think people with heart conditions, people with kidney conditions, there was a bunch of people that shouldn't be taking their D, right? Which you don't normally hear from the doctor, who shouldn't be taking it, which I would say nobody. But that's the first thing. But then it said, that there can be side effects, right? And it listed some side effects, but the one that caught my eye was death. So
That one always gets me. You see the happy people on the commercial. Oh, could cause this, anal leakage and death.
Exactly. So on the manufacturers, of the D supplement, that's what they're making, and they even have it there. But that's not what we're hearing on the sharp end, where people are getting the supplements. Right. So death is a possibility. Now, I think it's more likely that you're going to have thyroid issues. That's another thing it causes, and it causes thyroid issues because the synthetic D that you're taking competes with the receptor sites for the active D. So the active D is pushed out of its own receptor sites, so it's looking for a home. So it starts looking at similar receptor sites. It just so happens that this receptor site in thyroid for T3 is similar, and worse than that, but D3, this is the proper D3 that's active in your body, that's been made by sunshine, that has a greater affinity for the receptor sites of T3 than T3 does. So it pushes your T3 out of your thyroid, and so that's all part of the parcel of the problem that many people end up with thyroid issues, and they never think, well, maybe it's my D, because this stuff's just generally not.
Because why would they? Because everybody tells them D is good.
Exactly so. So we've got all these gurus, even in natural health, saying take D, and then you've got like frontline doctors who are, lots of credit for the work that they've done. They've done a lot of great work, but they're trained by Big Pharma, and so they've shaken off a lot. They're able to see a lot of the lies, and they've been sharing a lot of their information, but they still have the shackles of Big Pharma on them that they still haven't, completely thrown it all off. So, and D is one of those areas that they don't know about. They haven't, they haven't figured that part out yet. I'm sure they'll get there. And as I say, I don't want to knock them, because I think they've done a phenomenal job in educating people in some of the suppressed information. I hear that Google's just taken them off the search now. You can't find them anymore.
You can't find a lot of things on Google.
Oh yeah, that is true. So anyway, so kind of in summary, right? D is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. The supplements that are being pushed by and large by everybody are synthetic and are only replacing or topping up your inactive D. They are completely ignoring active D, which is just beyond belief that they would do that. If there was no test for it, then fine. And the test is a little more expensive and a little more difficult, but the test is there, but they don't do it in hardly any cases. There's a couple of situations where they will. And so what people should be doing if they're taking D is they should stop immediately. They are not deficient. The test is fraudulent. Okay. They should eat healthily. Look for the foods with D in it if they really want to top up. So something like is usually fish, primarily, and fish oils like cod liver oil, stuff like that. I'm not saying they need it, but if they want it, then that would be a way that they can do that. Get in the sun in the months where the sun is, wherever you are in the world. Like some places that's only 4 or 5 months, and only some
I'll do it all year anyway, just in case I can get some of that.
Well, some of us lucky ones like me have that ability to have it all year. But
it's a little different where you are and where I am, right?
just a bit. But you don't need to get it all year. A human being has to, whatever you believe of evolution or creation, either way, we are designed or adapted. I believe in creation, but either way, to survive, we've survived for all this time without D supplementation. There was no D supplementation for the previous history, and people for that are outdoors were not suffering with the diseases of vitamin D. They weren't getting rickets. The only people getting rickets were people that just didn't see the sunlight day in, day out, week in, month in, and year out.
Right.
But other people not. So if you're getting out in the sun, just your face and your hands is enough. Now, is it better to get more? Yes. There's masses of things that sunshine does. Beyond just D, it goes far beyond D, and getting sunshine is a phenomenally healthy thing to do.
And you need to give yourself enough time to absorb it. You just walk outside and walk back in isn't really going to help you very much.
Well, it's only about 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
It's needed, but that's a minimum. Like if you get more, it's better.
My minimum is 40. I commit to 4 to 6 days a week, 40 minutes outside.
Right.
Hopefully most of those days are sunny.
Right. And I go out in the sun regularly, and because I'm in a hot country, I take my top off very often. So one of the things that I do is I take my t-shirt off and cut the grass. And that I'm going to be out there we've got a big lawn, so I'm going to be hours, usually over a number of days, because I'm, half an hour and I'm done. So I split it over a number of days, and I'm getting sun, while I'm cutting the grass. So I find reasons. I also go onto the beach and, what have you. So I find ways to get sun. It's easy for me, of course, because I've got year-round sun. But for those people that aren't, you don't need year-round sun to get enough D. You just get out in the sun in the 4 or 5 months that you get sunshine, for at least 20 minutes or so. 2 or 3 times a week, and you'll have enough D. You'll have enough D. But if your legs start to bow like that, then just know that you're not doing enough. And instead of doing all this synthetic supplementation and this rocks and for minerals and synthetics for vitamins and all that, get it from food, healthy food. And then I get fed up watching people. They show me, they come to me with whatever problem, and I say, "What are you taking? Any supplements?" "Oh yeah, I'm doing great on supplements." "Oh right, so what are you taking?" They send me a photograph, and it's like 20 different bottles of stuff. I'm like, oh my life, what the heck? You do not need to be taking.
I've been there.
Right. Sometimes it's more than that. But they've got a cupboard, and it's just like full of stuff. And one of the reasons often for that is because they're taking isolates. If you're taking isolates, here's my copper, here's my magnesium, here's my calcium, here's then you're going to end up, if you're taking isolates, you're going to end up with a hell of a lot. So that's one of the reasons. It's not always the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. But we don't need to be taking masses of supplements. Most people, 2 or 3 supplements is enough for most people. If they're eating a reasonably healthy diet and they've not got a serious chronic condition, if they haven't got cancer or something like that. So just get good quality food-based supplements and top your diet up with that.
All right. Well, what would you use if you wanted to supplement vitamin D or to get the most out of all of those things together?
So for the most part, so it depends on the individual, what's going on, and all the rest of it. But I have 2 supplements that I use for my clients regularly as foundational, because they deal with the 2 major issues. So the first major issue is toxicity. So
my favorite topic.
Right, okay. So we're all being poisoned. I'm not going to go into it. I'm sure you've done it before, but there's lots of ways that toxins are getting into us.
We're surrounded. It's just the world we live in.
We're surrounded. And so one of the key things that I like to do is help people get the toxins out of their body faster than they're coming in, which means that day by day they're getting less toxic instead of day by day getting more toxic, which is what most people are doing. And so there's 2 things that I recommend that they do. The first is drinking sufficient good quality pure water, because water is the prime flush. So I like people to be drinking enough water. And then the second is to use a natural nanoclinoptilolite, which is a mineral, which is a toxin magnet, and it pulls the free toxins. It doesn't pull toxins out of your storage sites, but any free toxins, it grabs them, neutralizes them, and gets them out of your body.
Yeah.
So that's for toxins, and it's nano, and it needs to be nano because sadly, over the last decade or so, more and more of the toxins that we're being bombarded with are nano. And that simply means they're so tiny, they get into places that they otherwise wouldn't get to, including the brain. And to resolve a nanotoxin problem, you need a nano toxin neutralizer. So nano can be bad, but it can also be good. And so you've got to use a nano solution to solve a nano problem. So that's the first thing. And maybe Jamie, you could put a link below the video with some information about that. I know you're familiar with that product because I know you use it. And the second product that I use is a food for the nutrition. It's a food-based supplement. So one of the things that you want to do when you're getting nutrition, whether you're talking diet or whether you're talking a supplement, you want your nutrients to be coming from a broad range. Okay, any one thing, it doesn't matter how good it is. If you're talking, let's say, spirulina or wheatgrass, or people have got different things. Oh, wheatgrass is just awesome. It's got so much, right? Yeah, it's got a lot of great, but it's much better to be a broad cross section. So I'm really big on going broad as you can. So there's a food-based supplement that I use. It's a super green drink, and it contains 44 different superfoods. So that's like far more than any normal person is going to be eating. And it also covers all the major categories. So you've got fruit, you've got veggies, you've got mushrooms, medical mushrooms, you've got fruit, veggies, mushrooms, algae, and you've got herbs.
Yeah.
So all of the plant-based and algae are all there. So it is suitable for vegans if vegans want it, but most of us omnivores, I'm an omnivore, most of us omnivores probably not eating that much fruit and veggies, especially breadth. I know you're a vegan.
I would love to see someone's refrigerator who was actually eating 44 superfoods a day.
Yeah, that would be something, right? So it's got 44 superfoods, and it's so as a consequence, so they're all organic, but they're a much higher standard of organic than the USDA and the regular certifications. It is USDA certified, but that's a much lower standard than these are. So it's a much higher standard. They're also grown in minerally rich soil. And when you grow organically in good quality soil, 44 superfoods, you're going to end up with every single nutrient that the human body needs. Now, as far as plants can provide, anyway. So, and even B12. As famously, plants don't have B12, but algae do. So you've even got your B12. So you've got all your vitamins and you've got all your minerals. One scoop of this stuff is roughly the equivalent of 33 servings of organic fruit and veggies, and it has 30 scoops in a canister. So for most people, that's vastly more than they are eating. And the recommendations that they give for how many servings we should have are woefully low, because of the quality of the produce we're getting, which is so deficient.
Right.
We need to be eating, on average, a barrow full of carrots a day, and it's kind of ridiculous what we need to eat. So this is the equivalent of 33 servings, and it does it very inexpensively. Like, I don't know how much 33 servings cost in the US, Jamie. And that's, have you got an idea?
I think it's I think the the whole thing is about like
No,
60.
I'm talking about actual. If you went to the grocery store.
If I went to, well, in the past few weeks, it has gone up a lot, especially in New York. So I wouldn't even know how much.
Right.
How much? I
I'm
mean,
hearing it,
I eat vegetables and herbs and fruits and all of that on a daily, and that's like what my weekly groceries, what I get, and I get a lot of variety. But even for me as one person, my grocery bill is probably much higher than most people as an
have you any
individual.
clue, like, how much would one serving of blueberries, let's say, or if you don't know?
Well, blueberries are expensive, so usually like $7 or $8.
Right. So one serving. Okay.
Just
So
one little thing.
this supplement that I'm talking about, 33 servings, would be much cheaper than your one serving of blueberries. We're talking about
Absolutely.
$2-ish, more or less $2 for the equivalent of 33 servings. So it's incredible value as well.
Yeah, when you look at it like that.
Let me screen share a second, and I'll give you a quick peek at the ingredients. There we go. So that's the ingredients. I don't know if people can see that or not, but
here we'll
there
start.
you go.
We'll start here.
So, and it's low in carbs. So even people on a low carb diet can take this stuff because it's only got 5 carbs per scoop.
There we go.
So there it is. Yeah.
There it is.
So that's great. So anybody that wants to, and there's no additives, there's none of the normal rubbish that they add. It's just food.
It's just food. Yeah.
Food. Nothing.
And when you read this, it's not like when you read labels and you're like, well, I don't really know what that is, but oh well. On a synthetic thing, there's all these fillers and this and that. When you read this, you know what all of these words are. You know that they're food, right?
It's just food. And apart from the vitamins and minerals, it's also got enzymes, which is going to help with the metabolizing the nutrients, and it's got probiotics and prebiotics. So it's got a lot of stuff there. So let's pop back. Hopefully you guys had time to see that. If not, you can always pause and go back. But anyway, so those two, well, that's 4, isn't it? Those two cover a lot of ground. Now, if someone has got specific issues, then sometimes I'll add some other things. For example, they might need omega-3. Sometimes they might need some of the amino acids and other little bits and pieces. But that's my foundation. I think if every person took those two that we've mentioned, and if you can put links below to share some information, that'd be great, Amy. But if every person did those two, we'd be in a much different situation. I will just mention that the clinoptilolite, I didn't go into too much detail on that, but that also will remove things like the graphene oxide that there's a lot of talk about. It will remove the spike protein that, again, there's a lot of talk about. It removes even radiation. There's a lot of talk about 5G and all that. It removes radiation. In fact, it's used by governments around the world when they have radiation problems, like disasters like Chernobyl. Yeah, they use this. So it removes radiation, it removes herbicides, it removes pesticides, it removes a massive, massive range of stuff. Mercury, if you've got mercury fillings, those things are leaking 24/7. Taking them out is also problematic because
dangerous can be.
It can be dangerous, even done properly. So you need to be mopping up that mercury. So many people are sick because of mercury poisoning and they don't know it. This will mop up the mercury. Aluminum, it will mop that stuff up. So this is why this combination. Now the greens as well will support the clinoptilolite because it helps the detox pathways. Now the clinoptilolite is going to work whether or not your detox pathways are open, which is another phenomenal thing about it. If you've got MTHFR, COMT, you're constipated, any of these problems, it's still going to work, right? But the greens is going to help to support detox through another mechanism. And so some part of that mechanism is providing the nutrients for your body to function properly. And part of it is that it's going to support the organs, the pancreas, the small and large intestines, the gallbladder,
It
and so
supports the
on.
body's natural detox
Yeah, the
process.
kidneys, the liver. It supports all of those with things like dandelion and milk thistle and herbs designed to support the detox organs. So we're going to help with detox separately in a different mechanism to what the canoxyl light does. So detox is a really important because it's the foundation. Even more important, if you can be more important. I mean, it's hard to put them on a level because being deficient is a big problem. But if I had to rate them, I would say the toxins is the biggest problem.
Well, if you take care of those toxins, then you take care of a lot of the deficiencies.
You do, because the toxins are inhibiting the body's ability to absorb the nutrients. So you
Yeah.
don't need as much nutrition if you haven't got the toxins. So yeah. So I mean that was quite a long answer to your question, Jamie. But that's my basic foundational start for the majority of people.
Right. Well, I mean, I've heard this conversation before, but still every time it's there's just so much information, right? And it's something always kind of a light bulb goes off. And I appreciate the way you've explained this, because like you said in the beginning, there are a lot of people who they know what they know. That the doctor told me this, I took it, I feel better, right? And there's a lot, it's hard to get past the fact that no matter what it is, a mineral, the hormone, a vitamin, right? Like all of these things, that there's a bigger picture to it. There's a balance and things like that. And maybe just starting with questioning things like, why don't they test for the active, right? Like just simple things like that, and opening up people to seeing, to seeing a truth or a bigger picture. And I get that out of it too every time that I hear these things. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we've probably covered everything that we wanted to cover.
We're good.
So thank you so much for inviting me. And anytime you want to do another, just let me know.
Absolutely.